Hey everybody, Brian T. Bradley here as a protection attorney, and I just want to get into some of your common questions that I get from a lot of clients when they call in and go over again a little bit of the basics of asset protection and what it is that you really want to know. And so let's start off with what the role of asset protection is. And so the role of asset protection really is about lifestyle preservation at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you really need to you want to pay your bills. You probably want to keep living the lifestyle that you currently are, traveling where you want, when and where you want to travel to, purchasing cars, houses, going to Starbucks, whatever it is that you're doing in your normal daily lives, you're going to probably want to keep doing. And that's what the point of asset protection really is. And to do that, you need to protect liquid cash. And then the other primary role of asset protection is to change the way that you're viewed by a predator from an asset-rich mark or a target where they see you as a payday to a money sinkhole with no assets that they can get any money out of, or a judgment order that's going to be worthless. So then what are they going to do? What's the point of suing you if you can't get an exercise a judgment order and you can't get any assets or money out of the assets that you have? They're just going to go move on to an easier target. And so what we're looking for when we're setting up a system is something that's effective, that gives you control. The costs are reasonable to set up the system in relation to what you're trying to protect, and it's easy to maintain. And what reasonable cost means is that you're not going to go spend $50,000 to protect one or two properties and you only have a net worth of $300,000. That makes no sense. But you wouldn't blink an eye to spend $50,000 or $100,000 on a system to protect $100 or $500 million. So it's all in relation to what it is that you're trying to protect and what the goal is. So now you're probably saying, okay, that sounds great and all, but really what is asset protection? And asset protection really is estate planning and wealth transfer, just very advanced estate planning that goes beyond your typical revocable living trust. It adds a protection mechanism and element. Your typical revocable living trust doesn't protect assets. It's not designed to. They're simply to avoid probate and transfer assets to who you want them to go to and to help decrease death taxes. That's about it. They offer zero protection though. If you get sued and you lose, a court can and will cut through that revocable living trust like a hot knife through butter and order you to revoke that trust and pay the creditors. You don't want that. That means no retirement and no legacy to pass on, zero protection. So what we do with our clients for asset protection is act as an advisor and use different tools in our toolbox and utilize the power of our network of professionals. We set up systems and strategic teams to help with not just passing down the estate, but actual asset protection, wealth management, administration, which is a big deal, portfolio tax management, helping clients use the IRS and tax code as a treasure map to accelerate their wealth and to stay on top of and take advantage of federal tax and state exemptions while they exist and while they change. And then using metrics and analytics to the point of when to transition assets, at what age to transition them, and in what value amounts so that you stay case law compliant. And then by doing this, you get the added benefit of better tax planning and risk management. This then offers better estate tax planning and decreasing the taxable estate, especially as you grow exponentially. Now, just remember, asset protection, though, is tax neutral, meaning you can't set up a system to avoid paying reasonable and lawful taxes or scam the system. That's fraud. But what you can do is use legal tools to protect your assets and your wealth. And by using these tools, you then get tax benefits as a byproduct. And this allows for better tax and portfolio planning and management. So asset protection really is just an advanced combination of estate planning with different trusts, business entity structures, tax law planning, wealth and portfolio management with risk management, all rolled up into one nice package. But I do want to stress again this point. You cannot scam the system. That's not what asset protection is about. But what you can do is hire the best advisors like tax lawyers and CPAs who know what legal tools exist and that can use them and how to properly set them up and how to maintain them. And then they're set up legally and you stay in legal compliance with the legal system that actually created them. And then you get the benefits of them, and they are significant benefits. For example, first, maximizing exemptions and using exemption planning. Using asset protection trusts rather than your revocable living trust, picking the correct jurisdiction to set all this up in, domestic versus offshore, or some kind of combination. Also, most people don't realize that the tax code has very minimal amount of pages that are actually written about how to take your money, only like 30 to 40 pages. The rest of the thousands of pages in the tax code is the government literally telling you where to place your money for investments and what systems and mechanisms the government prefers to maximize your money in. It's actually a treasure map written for you to follow by the government if you actually have the right advisors talking to you. And so who needs asset protection? It's not for everybody, and there's no magical formula that exists. The only modern constant that we see is that we live in a very litigious society, especially modern society, where litigation or lawsuits are becoming an actual tool or mechanism to accumulate wealth by plaintiffs who are using it predatorily and their attorneys. With the increase in impact of litigation, our goal and what we want is to make sure that you actually have an estate to pass down. The more you earn, the more you have, the more visible you are, the higher risk you are of being a target and sued. It's just the law of probabilities. There's no escaping it. Your odds increase the more visible you are. So if you're a high-risk professional like a doctor, a lawyer, CPA, dentist, an investor, real estate developer, a high-earning executive, a business owner, an entrepreneurial with a startup, your business owns assets, or even your children drive your cars and you have assets to lose, you guarantee loans. Heck, even if you're a plumber or a nurse or a firefighter, or a cop starting to invest in cash flowing real estate to fund your retirement, this is you. Then yes, you need asset protection in some form. And three of my favorite clients, there's actually a cop, a nurse, and a firefighter who started investing independently on real estate themselves to fund their retirement. And they need asset protection systems to protect that nest egg that they started building. If you own any business and you have employees, you're liable, vicarious liability. That's where effective asset protection planning comes into play. A properly structured asset protection plan can effectively protect your assets from litigation and creditors, and beyond just acting as any deterrent. That's one of the benefits of it also, but it also places you in a position of strength at the negotiation table. If you are sued, you have a substantially higher odds of settling the case now for pennies on the dollar versus being personally liable for anything with no protection system to fall back on. That was preventative. Now, a very big misconception is that I have insurance, I'm covered, I'm good, I don't need anything else. The quick answer to this is no, wrong. Read your insurance policy, read the fine print, understand what you're not covered for and what your claim limit is. Insurance companies don't cover you for fraud, punitive damages, or intentional wrongdoings. Heck, even if you're a business owner with employees and you get hit with a class action wage and hour claim, which are very big right now, you're not covered by your insurance provider, and now you might lose everything. So when your claim goes to the insurance company's legal department, what defenses do you think that they're going to use to get out of paying the claim? This is just basic insurance law 101. And also understand the insurance industry as a business. They wouldn't be in business if every single claim was covered in full and not challenged, especially the large ones. This is why insurance defense attorneys exist. Now, I'm in favor of insurance and umbrella policies and get as much as you can. Just remember to read your fine print and know the details. And just think about being sued, while at the same time having to sue your insurance provider at the same time to cover a claim that you feel you should be paid in full and they don't think it will. And they're going to say, no, go ahead and sue us and prove that you deserve all that money. That's going to be a nightmare. And that's a decision that's going to be made by the legal department, not by your neighborhood insurance salesman. The other big must know about asset protection is about fraudulent transfers and fraud. A fraudulent transfer is a transfer of an asset made for little or no consideration where the other party did not really get anything in value for it in return, with an intent to hinder, delay, or defeat the claim of a creditor. Now compare this to fraud. Fraud, which is just basic Black's Law dictionary, you learn in law school like day one, is an intentional misrepresentation of material fact to induce someone to act or refrain from acting to their detriment. Now, these are two very different definitions. Now, fraud usually is a crime. Just understand the difference between fraudulent transfer and fraud. One is a transfer with an intent to hinder or delay or defeat the claim of another. The other is an intentional misrepresentation that's going to hurt them, and it does. Fraudulent transfers, on the other hand, is not per se a crime. but it's a supplemental proceeding where you get sued. They start finding out where your assets are, what assets you transferred, and what time frame you transferred them in. And if they discovered you made a transfer for little or no consideration within a certain amount of time, generally 5 years, the other party will ask the judge to undo those transfers. The remedy is just to undo the transfer so they can get access to the asset and the money. Now, this is where the importance of jurisdiction comes into play. The reason an offshore trust is so powerful in this regard is that in order to undo a transfer, the court actually has to have the power to tell that person that you transferred the asset to give it back. So any court in the US does not have the power to tell, let's say, an offshore Cook Island trustee what to do and to give that asset back. The Cook Islands statutorily don't recognize any US court order or judgments. Now compare this to anything in the US. Any system that's purely domestic in the US does not have the ability to say no. This is because of the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. That's the power of going offshores. Now, fraud with the intent to misrepresent and causing harm, again, is a crime. The guru Howard Rosen and Doug Laudmill have a great YouTube video that you should look on this topic. They talk about the Anderson and Lawrence case and how they work with civil contempt. So the law is that you cannot be incarcerated for failing to do something that is impossible for you to do, even if you created the impossibility, since this is punishment and civil contempt cannot be used to punish, but only to force you to do something. And the law hasn't changed on this since 1948. And so at this point, you're probably wanting to know, Brian, that's great and all, but what's the way you go about setting up these asset protection systems? And so for our typical client, we start with an asset diagnostic and evaluate the total estate and net worth with metrics and analytics based off of years of case law. We look at where the assets are positioned and then first start with maximizing state and federal exemptions. We then move on to advanced planning, and this involves identifying non-exempt assets and placing them into appropriate asset protection trusts, generally placed offshore in the Cook Islands. Sometimes this trust will be a combination of a domestic trust with an offshore trust, just depending on the client's comfort with going offshore or not, or with an LLC. The type of trust that we'll use will vary depending on the client's facts and needs. It's always going to be fact dependent, but we prefer the stronger home court advantage of the Cook Islands and what they offer. If the clients are being attacked when they get it to us, we assess the amount of the damages for the claim and what assets the clients have to cover that claim, and then what the insurance coverage is and what we reasonably expect the insurance provider to actually pay. And then we move the free assets that aren't subject to the claim and the liquid assets first, like cash, and we protect those hard. And then we leave the undesirable assets for any possible claim. I mean, at the end of the day, why are we going to make it easy for the other party? For our California clients, we prefer to see if the clients first qualify for what's called a private retirement plan trust, PRP plan, before going to a more advanced planning. This is because of a special statute that only California residents can qualify for. You can watch my YouTube video on full asset protection planning for California residents using PRP exemptions. And then for more detailed information on jurisdiction and offshore trust versus domestic trust and jurisdictions, you can watch my other YouTube videos on these topics, which give a more in-depth breakdown of them, like the bridge trust, quick tips on jurisdiction, price shopping, and for you high net worth families, the high set gift trust, which is an amazing exemption right now for you to look up. And thanks for following along, and I hope these videos are educational and informative for you. You can reach me at my email, Brian, BRIAN, @btblegal.com, and you can visit my website at www.btblegal.com. And thanks, and I hope that you're enjoying these videos on asset protection, and it's helping you think about what questions to ask your attorney or how to find one and someone that's knowledgeable in this area. Take care.